In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another lecture, a very interesting one. I'm going to try to make it quick. All right. So, my fellow species, I find myself in a moment capable of talking about something that is at the frontiers of human consciousness. There are 8 billion people on this planet, and if you look at how they are living, you will notice most people's value and emotions are based from their past. If the human being has a relationship of past, present, future, and the body is going from the past to the present and to the future, and the past no longer exists for the body, then when we look at it for the mind, as long as the mind can remember the past is not ended. For the body, there is no past. For the mind, the past continues as a memory. Now, what I'm trying to say is 8 billion human beings on this planet. If you go and ask them who they are, the emotion or the thoughts they have tends to be based on what they've lived through. That means if you ask me, who am I? Like the traditional, like the way society's kind of conditioned us, I got to tell you, starting from my past up to my present. But I've realized that we don't have to be limited to emotions like that. I've realized that the mind actually has access to the not just the past, but visualizations and probabilities of the future. And the proof of that is very obvious. Right now, I can imagine flying cars. But in 2025, there is no commercial flying cars. I could imagine that there will be requirement for laws in the sky. There needs to be light pylons in the sky in the future. Do you understand? That means right now we don't have that technology, but we have a mind that could look at the geometry of what's existing now and wonder about its future probabilities. So today, I just want to make it clear that out of all the human beings you can listen to on earth right now in this moment, if you have found my voice, you're listening to a human being speak about how the species can shift its emotional maturity, its life. This life of our species can shift with an identification with our future value. Do you know people have emotions based on what their past value was? Do you know? But you can also extract emotions from the future, and pretty much I'm trying to tell you, your mind has access to the future, but your body doesn't. Now, this title is very unique. I believe the state of consciousness that I am in right now to speak about this is actually ahead of its time. In a world where everything is conditioned in accordance to your past self, I am talking about your future self, but I am making much deeper claims about what the future is. I'm that human being that has discovered that the present is the future's memory. And what that means is we do have a relationship with our future self. Now, for this lecture, I've created I have two components prepared. One is the research component. I'm going to read for you some stuff, my research with AI, and then I'm going to share my actual views on this after. The main point I'm trying to convey, and hopefully I can do it elegantly, what I'm trying to communicate elegantly is that I was fascinated, how would the species behave if everyone met their future self? This fascinating question has occurred to me. Do you know that in some sense, if I had access to my future self right now, what would I change or how would I live differently? And then the question goes now from one individual, it goes to 8 billion human beings on earth. If they all met and had access to their future selves, how would they in some sense behave now? And I'm making that argument that we do have access to our future selves. And in some sense, I am trying to be, in some sense, the living proof of it by communicating to you that your mind is way ahead of your body. So, if your whole life you have been thinking about your past self, you've been thinking about what kind of person you've become now, just for a moment wonder if you had the possibility of meeting your future self. That means if somebody right now told me, if you could meet anyone in the world, who would you meet? My honest first answer would be, it's not a who, it's the system admin, because we're all inside a simulation. But my second answer would be one of my biggest dreams in life. I have four dreams in this world before I die. One of them is to get to see my most advanced self. And I believe it's at the mercy of the system admin. The second is to get to see, or at least feel, what the most advanced movement of the species is, even if it's for one day. If they were like, yo, the system admin for one day will, you in some sense, advance civilization before in some sense we wake up from that dream, I would be like, if I could just feel what the advancement of 8 billion minds, do you understand the intensity? That every soul you have met has been a hidden world carrier. To see the most advanced self, to see the most advanced species, to access the most advanced view of self, to access the most advanced view of the state of the species, to advance the most, to access the most advanced state of the world, and then to, in some sense, get to experience the most advanced power to being. Do you know, it's kind of like, that's like my checklist, to be honest. And at the same time, I do have the understanding that at the time I've been born, like a part of me has always felt I was born 400 years too soon. I feel like I should have been born in the Mecha age. The Mecha age spelled MECHA. It's the age where robotics is through AI. Like, you don't understand. Right now, I've appeared on this planet at the pioneering phase of AI. Like, when I look at my life, I was born in 1991. I was probably one of the last generations that, of those kids that played outside. I would play outside as a kid. Soccer. In Iran, we would go into this, like there was a street, and every kid from the apartment would come down and they would all play. So what I'm trying to tell you is that I got to experience playing in nature as a kid and climbing trees, and I also got to experience like staying up to 2 a.m. with my cousins, brother and cousins, just playing like ballers on the first PlayStation 1 or Pepsi Man, like old school stuff. And so what I mean by that is that I got my consciousness as a human being, my whole life, this has been the current theme, that I've been in between worlds. Like, That means I was born between, like, you know, at the front, at the beginning of like the console era. I have memories of like dial-up internet. You know what I mean? It's as if, yo, man, people don't get old. Time goes forward. What the fuck? It's time's fault, guys. Time is aging. We're ageless. You know, there's so many people who go to, like in Hollywood, you know, there's like this, you know, culture of plastic surgery, you know, and it's as if like an identification with an imperfect sense of self, right? But at the same time, the easiest way, you know, is to just identify as not a body. They're like, yo, man, do you know, how did you surpass, how did you, you know, stay immortally young? You know, and the person's like, buddy, there is no time. It's like I stopped believing in time, and it's like I don't know. I don't know what age I am anymore. Sorry, guys. I'm taking this to, you know, I just felt silly for a moment, but the reason is because I've thought about the consequences of decisions, and physically I'm capable of doing certain decisions, but internally I'm way more capable of making decisions. That means if somebody says, hey man, can your inner body, like your inner sense of self, can that move way more freer than your outer body? I'll be like, my mind has always, not always, until when I became conscious of it, my mind has been freer than my body. What that means is, let me tell you, there's some clues. Okay, whatever, I'll get into this. Why not? It's kind of like maybe parallels the talk, but just keep in mind, guys, you know, if I stay on a tangent too long, remind me. I gotta go through the research component and explain to you what the value of meeting your future self is and how that's even possible. Okay? Think of it this way. All the teachers in your school taught you about the past. Now, someone who is a student of the future, I find myself, to be honest, I don't see the student-teacher vibe. I see more every soul is an explorer in an unknown world. But on some level, I do feel I have been a student of the future. Something has made my intelligence bored with the past and the present, and I just fulfill my life's meaning by living for something that has a greater value in the future. So just keep in mind, you're listening to a futurist, and you're also listening to someone who's Muslim, which means that the future of everything is the return of the simulation into the original state of it. Okay? But anyways, okay, I'm gonna tell people, I'm gonna share. See, I'm not gonna teach you anything. I'm gonna share with you the clues, and then you have to connect the dots. Okay? So first clue: what the f are dreams? Like not like ambitions. I'm talking about like actual dreaming states. Okay? So this is the clue. If anybody right now, any human being on earth who wants to learn, I guess indirectly, how to activate your inner realms, or how to be conscious of your inner realms, pretty much understand that your intelligence, first consider yourself as an intelligence. You're like some advanced technology, okay? You don't know who the user of this is, you don't know who you are, but you're using this technology, okay? Now, the point I'm trying to make, let me find a better song, guys. I need to find a song that kind of like awakens the soul. All right, this is it. The first song I heard by this artist ever. So this is the tangent part of the All right, take this in. When you sleep, your body is in the bed, physically, existentially not moving. You're in your dream state. Your mind simulates a body, and you can move in your body. Move in your dream state. So what does that mean? That means your intelligence doesn't necessarily need a body to experience a body moving. Or after it has a body, it has acknowledged it has a body, it can simulate bodies to itself. So what I mean is that please consider, oh human beings of Earth, your brain has an ability that when you're sleeping, if it wants to move, an animation of a body arises in the dream. What that means is you can simulate a body over your body. Now, the question is, we human beings have been wondering about the mystery of the mind in the waking state. So there's the deep sleep state, there's the sleep state, there's the conscious waking state, you know. And so right now I'm speaking to you from the conscious waking state, but I'm like, hey, isn't it a clue that when you dream, your mind can forge a body and reality that is not your actual body, physical body in the bed? So this means your mind is so advanced. Your dreams are proof that your mind is so advanced that if you were daydreaming, if you were dreaming in the day, it couldn't tell apart. It couldn't tell it apart. That means if you have an ability to in some sense be asleep physically, but your mind generates a body. I keep emphasizing this. You can move the body in your dream state, and you can feel something in your dream state. In your dream state, you could feel fear, you could feel freedom, you could feel whatever. Do you know? So I've understood that, wait a minute, it's not just one physical level of reality and then what the F is going on with dreams. What is going on actually is that there is an existential simulation that is to some degree changing slower than we are. Okay? In the sense that the expiration date of the planet is like unfathomably longer than us. Okay? But what I'm trying to tell you is that, what does it mean that your mind doesn't need a body to simulate an experience of a body? It means that when you wake up throughout the day, or even right now you're listening, you think you have stopped dreaming. You probably think you're awake right now, right? You're looking at the world, like look around you, whoever you are. You feel you've stopped dreaming. Yes, but the difference is that it doesn't mean it doesn't mean you have stopped dreaming. It's that the dreaming is continuous, and reality is now included in the awareness's reception. So it's as if, like, when somebody's asleep, if somebody goes and tells them a story in the room, like, sure, it might be able to affect their dreams somehow, but I'm trying to tell you that your mind is simulating reality over reality. Okay? And it's doing it so masterfully that you might be shocked in the future to realize you don't need a body to get the experiences of the body, or you need at least a taste of what embodiment is like to be able to, for the mind to reforge that. Okay, but there is another bigger clue. Not only like, yo man, what are dream states? That's freaky. It's not just that. It's like, yo man, why are we all in the same server? This is the biggest clue. The biggest clue that reality surpasses every one of our simulative abilities of conception is the fact that we're all in a multiplayer online game right now. Instead of online, we're in a multiplayer on life game. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Like it's not online, it's on live. It's alive. You're right now in an intelligent system. This intelligence can animate through human form. It can animate through other species. It can animate through even paradigms of how your perception throughout the day changes, right? And so on some level, do you know, I understood it like this, that what is the, like, I'm at a point in my life where I have to, at some point, like, just become an egotistical entity and just solve all my financial problems, you know? But at the same time, when I ask myself what is giving value to my day, it's all about what is going to outlive me. Do you know what I mean? That means when I think about why children are important, to have children, right? Like why that's a major responsibility and achievement, because on some level you're continuing something that will outlive you, and it can go on influencing reality beyond your influence. Do you understand? So the nature that, think of it this way, it's like there are some beings contributing to bringing souls in the world. There are some beings who in some sense after the souls have arrived are in some sense, let me tell you that, let me say it this way. You got to become fascinated by how nothing makes sense, and then you're going to find a freedom to start from scratch. And you have to start from scratch honestly, meaning that you have to, in some sense, trust a core part of you, or in some sense, trust an absolute value in your being. Once you notice that your mind is living over your physical perception of reality, life becomes very interesting because you can figure out where the meaning of things begin. So I want you to think of it this way, that maybe in this life you've been trying to live as just like you, one self in one world, but in actuality it's like what the human being is a bunch of simulations that have strangely aligned. Okay? And there is a uniqueness in it, that the whole point of there being others in the world, that means like why weren't we just inside an endless dream state? Why are we in a physical world where physical reality is our common denominator? You see, the issue is they're beginning thinking about the world physically. That's the biggest issue. You think this is a physical place. Everybody thinks this is a physical place. Yes, I'm like touching my car right now. Okay? There is physical sensation, but just because there is physicality doesn't mean the awareness is limited to that sector of reality. Something that somehow I've had in me just naturally as a child, I don't know, as a soul, was an ability to be able to maintain my distance from certain ideas. Okay? And think of it this way. Human beings are born on this planet, and they are conditioned in language, but not all of them feel. See, because I'm a visual thinker, I have a sort of OCD when it comes to language. What do I mean by that? That means if somebody comes in front of me and starts talking about suffering, misery, hell, pain, my mind is not just hearing those words. My mind is forging a film, is seeing scenes. Do you know what that means? That means even when people are rude, that's the downside of being a visual thinker. Do you know that the language they say animates in your mind as a film? And see, when I was young, I would get bored and not understand the books I would be reading, and they would just tell me, yo kid, just read a bit slower. And I would read slower and I would get bored, and my attention would be outside of the window wondering about the meaning of life. Do you know that means? It's like textbooks that kids don't understand is the greatest inspiration for philosophy. At some point you're like, what am I doing? And to be honest, what a philosopher means, I don't identify as a philosopher anymore, do you know? But what a philosopher means is someone who's not convinced. That's what it means. It's someone who has a stubborn mind. They're like, yo, why is this idea this idea? Do you know, where did the meaning of reality come from? What is actually going on in the behavior of human beings? What are inner forces influencing our lives, and what are outer forces? And right now we're just thinking that we're a self in a civilization, but you're not conscious of your civilization. Civilization hasn't made it easy for human beings to be able to advance it. And that's how you know it's not an advanced civilization right now. And the thing I was telling you about being aware of your state of mind, the clues lead to a realization that you have been conditioned to treat yourself like a noun based on the past, but in actuality, your future self is an unknown verb. That means it's very difficult to say if the future of this intelligence we call humanity is going to be closer to, is it going to still be associated with the form of life, or is it going to completely identify with the force of life? Do you know, it's like nouns have age, nouns suffer. Do you know, nouns have emotions. Do you know what I mean? It's like every person has forged themselves as a character in a story. Right now, if somebody comes and tells you, hey man, you know, you've been in this world this long, what does it mean to you? You're going to tell a story. Even what people don't realize, what personality is the conveyance of character. And as someone who's graduated from film school, I can tell you that ultimately think of it this way. You could have been conditioned in any way in this life. At some point, you're going to become fascinated by the future, and you're going to wonder about what's moving your soul right now. And in some sense, you're going to come to a point, if you become God conscious, that reality is not functioning under natural law. Natural law is functioning under divine command. Divine command means, all right, humanity, as advanced as you will get, understand that you're in the passenger seat. That there is a higher power here, guys. There's a higher intelligence. Now, this higher intelligence is not limited to form. Yet, because we are forms and we speak the language of forms, our reality and understanding is limited to forms. And so it's about realizing life is not you. It's like if your whole life you've been treating yourself as an object, you begin to realize the mind has been a force. Your mind has been a river. And you've been treating it like a, snapshot of a character, like a portrait on a wall. Now, that concludes the tangent. I went on. So, what I'm trying to say is that just consider how fascinating it is that your intelligence doesn't necessarily need to be conscious of your body to be able to experience a body. It means that your mind can live multiple different lives, whether you're conscious of or not of your body. So think of someone trying to dream while they're awake. Not dream, again, in the sense of ambition, actually dream. And that would be equivalent to someone like, there was this comedian who said something next level, and his name is Tom Segura. To be honest, I don't like, unethical comedy, but at the same time, he said that he would take like this DMT vape pen and he would legit travel through portals. Okay? And that's what happens technically. It's a release of DMT, I guess, during dream states. But I'm telling you, you're just discovering the capability of this technology. And I'm telling you, as a conscious person in the conscious waking state, that what you think is thinking is actually the ability to dream while we're awake. Let me tell you why. Because on I don't want to say unfortunately, but the way civilization 1.0 has gone forth, they let me see how I can explain this. I'm trying to say that when something doesn't make sense for a while in your experience, you have to wonder if your meaning structure satisfies it. And I am trying to convince my species that you have been the witness to change. You have not been just changing. You are an awareness that can permit activation in the conscious state. You are an animate being. You're not an object, a statue, or a painting. You are a character in a strange film, on a strange film set, where the director is not in the room. The director is not visible on the stage that we're all in, but we're all actors now, and it's like 8 billion actors dressed in the human uniform now, wondering about what the great play is. You know, what's the next act? Like, that's what was very fascinating for me, to realize that there is, how do I say it? It's like, I've experienced 12,000 simulations of myself daily. I've lived 12,000 days on this planet. To kind of, if you ask me how many of those 12,000 days are you aware of? I'm trying to say that you're identifying with this character in a story you feel you've known and shaped your whole life. And at some point you begin to see the limitations of that, and you wonder about how the true forces in reality are moving. Okay? There's this concept hilariously in Iranian culture when there was this game we would play called Vasati, right, which was kind of like a variation of dodgeball. Right, but there was one person in the middle who would have to dodge like two people throwing the ball at him. You know what I mean? And anyways, whatever. In this game, all like in my childhood, like my family in Iran was in an apartment, and my cousins were also living in the same apartment, right? And in some sense, some of my cousins were too young to play the game. We would call them chickpea. Like nokhodi, okay, nokhodi, which means like they're a chickpea, they're not in the game. Everybody, like, in some sense, don't consider them aware of the actual intensity of the game. Okay, now I want to say it's 8 billion chickpeas, guys. We are total, like, just be honest with yourself as a soul, as a being, and ask yourself, how aware are you of the true extent of what's going on here? If you are brave enough to ask this from yourself, you are in some sense challenging your own mind's original context. You see, my conclusion, if somebody's like Mr.Within, you said that you have these 4 like goals, right? These 4 things you want in life before you die, right? To get to see your most advanced self, to get to see the most advanced species, movement of the species, to get to see the most advanced world, you know, possible, and to get to see the most advanced relationship that one can have with the original power of reality. I have not. It's as if some souls, they enter the world, and they are shy and they leave. Do you know, being raised in this world, I've had a shy mind, you know, and a very kind of like, you know, quiet body. You know, but when it comes to my soul, I think sometimes my soul is just shouting, you know, or you know, like how like lions roar, or just animals in nature, they just project their presence through a call. You know, sometimes it's like if I look at my life so far, I've honestly lived a lay low life, you know. But there's something beautiful when you're young and you can't trust life. You are left to witness whatever is there. That means it doesn't matter what you are, who you are, if you are patient enough and actually fascinated. Fascinate. See, there's two kinds of people in the world till the end of time. Those fascinated by the known, by what they know, and those fascinated by what they don't know. Any soul that reaches that state of being fascinated by what they don't know, it's like they suddenly freaked out and they're like, what is my awareness aware of at all? Like, what have I been being this whole time? Do you know what I mean? You know how like somebody is like, you know, imagine there's a spider on your suit, you just instantly, like, you know, Bruce Lee like throw that spider off. You know, in the same way, there's going to come moments in life where the true depth of you is going to wonder about why you've just acknowledged the surface of reality only. Now, guys, I gotta sail back towards the title of the lecture. And to be honest, where I'm going with this is to be able to see the human design as if the body is in the present. It's no longer in the past and the future hasn't come yet, let's say. But to the mind, the past has not ended, and it's archived as memory. And the future, based on any ability to concentrate on any form, can probabilize. That means if somebody tells me, yo man, are you a fortune teller? I'll be like, no. The moment my mind showed me more than one probability to the future, I was like, I'm not seeing the future. I'm just experiencing this biochemical engine that in some sense is capable to not just remember how it physically moved, but remember how it was aware to its inner life. The question initially was, how do we, what if everyone met their future self? That's it. What if everyone met their future self? So entertain me as one of those first people trying to give a lecture on how to meet your future self. And this is not a spiritual lecture in the sense, excuse me, in the sense that I am not trying to talk about the supernatural. I have noticed something about the natural that seems to be supernatural. So we're going to enter the research portion. So for the research portion, there's two aspects to it. I've asked pretty much ChatGPT 4.0, and it's June 24th, 3:31 p.m. Let me see if I can. Okay, guys, I found it. So, okay, there we go. So, guys, I asked AI to that if everybody's like future self could kind of see their past self now, what would their future self change about their past self? So what I'm reading for you is me asking AI, hey man, if right now you could fathom the future self of human beings and what that future self would readjust from the past, what would it be? And we're looking at the design of its answers, and I think this is going to be very fascinating for you. What I'm going to read. And guys, let me know how the lecture's been coming across so far. You know, every human being has blind spots. If I have blind spots, let me know. All right, let's do this. One, the war on time. So guys, I'm reading something that's from AI about what would our future selves change from now. The war on time. From a scattered, distracted life of scrolling, reacting, and wishing to a focused, deliberate life of building, learning, and presence. Example, someone who wakes up at noon, spends hours on social media, and delays dreams, becomes a sunrise seeker, builder of ideas. That means the example is there's somebody who wakes up at noon, spends hours on social media, and delays their dreams. And then this changes into someone who becomes a sunrise seeker, builder of ideas, and protector of every sacred hour. What an incredible way of saying it. AI says philosophical reflection. The future doesn't punish you. It reflects you. Every moment you waste is a moment your future self must grieve. Wow. 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 Guys, AI has impressed me to such a degree that I understand why, Tony Stark couldn't say it to Pepper like directly, but he's like, Pepper, like, do you understand there's like the super advanced AI that could build anything I want? And Pepper's like, yo, spend more time with the family, or something like that. Do you know what I mean? And Iron Man's like, I don't know, there's this next level fucking advanced technology here. I don't know what to do right now. And the whole point of it is to unite all separate aspects of reality and march into an advanced future. What other option do we have as temporary beings in the world? That means like, this is strange, I've never spoken about it like this, but it's as if somebody's like, yo, Mr. Within, can you see a species get angry? I would say yes. I could see the rage of a species that in its mind can see an advanced potential, can see the better life, yet it is caught in the delay and lag of inefficiency. So in some sense, it's like suddenly the realization. Do you know how I envision my future self? Sorry guys, I was reading the AI research thing, but I gotta say this. Like, you know how I've envisioned my future self coming? For me, out of all the attributes in reality, if somebody was like, what feature or attribute does your mind, imagination have? Like the most core one? I wouldn't say I'm a powerful being. I would not say I am the greatest being. But I would say I have experienced a level of speed behind my eyes of animating, that there are moments throughout the day I just pause, and like a person who puts their hands in the river and feels the water passing through their fingers, in the same way there are moments throughout the day I just stand still, and it's as if instead of me changing the archetypes, I keep the conceptual archetype still, like my hand in the river, and then the context changes and I experience ad infinitum selves, countless selves, and at such speeds that at some point I realize the mind is moving so fast And there's a static awareness, regardless of how fast still it goes, that still witnesses it. That a part of me is convinced there is a part of us that is right now living faster than the speed of light. You don't understand. My future self has been kind of like a surge. Like, imagine a lightning strike for 1 second, as if something changed in an instant, and you didn't see how it changed, but you felt that something just traveled through the moment right now. There's like a trail of a different energy in the moment, you know? And so at least as one human being, like, take it as an example, my future selves has been the acceleration of my life force. You don't understand. It's like, let me tell you what it's like. It's like right now, I'm 33, okay, and my mind has already ran to my grave, seen my gravestone, and ran back to this moment. And now I'm like, okay, I will leave this room one day. How will I leave it? Shall the lesser realms control man's mind? Or shall man's mind advance to the higher realms? There's that scene in the movie Matrix where Morpheus and the Keymaker are just about to, like, you know, jump from an exploding truck. And in like a second, it's like Neo was there to, like, save them from the movie Matrix. What does that mean? That means as a being, he did not just advance in external power. He advanced in the power of being at the right place at the right time. That is a power. Do you know? For me, my strategy was, how do I advance civilization? And I was like, okay, I think subconsciously, if I had a sort of, like, you know, general in a battlefield archetype, I think a part of me understood that I cannot change the world. But what I unleash on the world can. Do you know what that means? That means I'm like that strategist in history who's like, it's like I will bring the future to the present. And do you understand what that means? It's like, imagine there's one general in a battlefield standing alone, and then there's like a general there with an army from the past, endless. So imagine there was a general from the past and there was a general from the future. Okay, and these two generals had to fight. And the general in the present was just watching from a hill. You know? It's as if the general from the future would not have an army, but the general from the past would have an endless army. But the moment any soldier from the army of the past general attacks the future general, the future army animates. You see, the whole point of it is they are using the past to chain the species to chunks of land. And do you know, it's like, if the future was a giant robot, I've already, typed in its activation code. For me, the reason I went to film school is because my mind is very cinematic. And, there's a scene in my mind, I constantly go back to it for inspiration. And it's this scene of this very fast being. How do I say it? You don't understand. If somebody says, if you had a choice between speed or strength, which one would you choose? And I would always choose speed. The reason is because speed means you can access states of the moment that in some sense others cannot. Now, I'm trying to tell you, the future right now for everybody, it's an experiential reality of a changing world. At the same time, it's a concept. In the same sense we consider time a concept. And this AI thing says the future does not punish you, it reflects you. Every moment you waste is a moment your future self must grieve. Think of it this way. Before you want to even meet your future self, why do you even care? Or maybe you care to meet your future self simply because you've noticed every person you've ever met on this planet, every soul's strategy every embodied soul strategy on earth is to live for their future self, because they're still in their own inner realms. Right now we have to get think of it this way, there's 8 billion human beings on this planet. Now imagine all 8 billion of them have boxes on their head. They have one box on their head, right? And imagine once they all take off the boxes, that's like Species Unity Day. The day where we unboxed humanity's true greatness, a united species marching towards interstellar, mission sets. You can, from the present, take any shape, anything. Right now, whoever's listening to me, just this part's interactive, find one object in front of you and write it in the chat section. Just whatever. I want you to just find something, one thing, one object that has a specific form. There's a reason I'm saying this, I don't know. Okay, to speed through it, whatever. I'm saying that look at any form, any shape. And you can wonder about its future. In the same way I can see this, imagine a flying car. Okay, somebody said a clock, okay? You can imagine like the future of a clock, in some sense being able to, like, how would clocks be obsolete if there's time travel? So right now we're kind of going like through time in a straight line or a spiral. But imagine you could access any moment of the day at any time. In the future, clocks would be like you would just go press 2 p.m. and you would just be in the exact simulation of 2 p.m. of the day. So you would never miss the day. Do you know what I mean? Anyways, what I'm trying to say is the mind has an ability to fathom ahead, to live ahead, okay? Now, we're reaching that point where we're wondering about the future self, and I got to really get through the research part, actually. Okay, so the first point was, what would the future self change from like its past self now? The war on time. So it says, I'll read it again. The future doesn't punish you, it reflects you. Every moment you waste is a moment your future self must grieve. 2. The sacred body covenant. From a life of slow decay through processed food, sedentary habits, and addiction, to a life of energy, clarity, and inner strength. The body is temple, not burden. Wow. Example, a person with chronic fatigue, pain, and shame from neglect becomes someone who feels light, strong, and free within their own skin. Philosophical reflection, you're not a mind riding a body. You're a soul expressing itself through flesh. Treat your body like it is carrying God. I would, because I'm Muslim, I would say treat your body. In Islam, there's a concept called amana. It's like, it's something precious given to us to take care of and return. See your body as a gift from God, truly. I need to learn this truly. Okay, 3, the unspoken truth. From a life of swallowed words, hidden emotions, and fake harmony, to a life of real conversations, expressed needs, and earned peace. Example, someone who never speaks up and carries silent resentment, they become a person who calmly expresses truth, sets boundaries, and feels emotionally light. Philosophical reflection. What we don't say becomes who we are, and the cost of peace with others is often war within. Philosophical reflection. What we don't say becomes who we are. Whoa. And the cost of peace with others is often war within. Okay, this was heavy. Let's go through the first part. What we don't say becomes who we are. That's true. Let me tell you how that's true. What we don't say becomes who we are because we haven't allowed the other archetype. So imagine someone's bothering you and you don't say anything. The moment you don't say anything, you become someone who's being bothered. That means if you don't communicate the archetype, you might not feel you're beyond it. Something like that. And then the second part, it says, and the cost of peace with others is often war within. Let me tell you why that would be the case if you think that your inner realms has to follow your outer realms. Do you know what I'm saying? That means like there are beings right now on this planet, you could go say anything to them and they still won't know where your words came from or what you saw that those words were ignited. Do you know what I mean? That means on some level we have to accept the fact that everybody has a different DNA, everybody has a different awareness to reality, different conditioning, different life and senses of self they've tunneled through. But on some level, I totally vibe with this thing that the unsaid becomes a burden on the heart. And so the heart has to release itself. Do you know what I mean? That means think of it this way, that there are levels to you, and these levels require alignment in accordance to the highest value in your experience. So, anyways, guys, I'm going to keep reading this. 4, AI says the relationship reckoning. From a life of clinging to the wrong people or pushing away the right ones, to a life of conscious relationships chosen with wisdom, not fear. Example, someone who stays in a toxic relationship out of loneliness becomes someone who walks away with grace and finds deeper connection elsewhere. Philosophical reflection. To love someone is not to hold them tightly. It is to know when to hold and when to let go with your soul intact. 5. AI says the courage to build. From a life of hoarded ideas, fear of failure, and hidden dreams, to a life of creation, contribution, and bold legacy. Guys, sometimes I feel this AI is like, it knows me. Example, someone with 30 unfinished projects on their laptop becomes a builder who launches, fails, adapts, and creates something lasting. Philosophical reflection. Creation is the soul's way of telling the universe it existed. Whoa! 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 Speechless. I'm speechless right now. That's such a beautiful line of thought. Creation is the soul's way of telling the universe it existed. Exactly. Why do we want other? Why are human beings trying to connect with other human beings at all? Because they understand there are worlds beyond them. That's the cool thing about like being in a room with a soul compared to just being in a room with inanimate objects, like the movie Castaway. So it says creation is the soul's way of telling the universe it existed. Build or be forgotten by the very life you lived. Wow. Wow. That means it didn't say it like that, but you need to build and care for the future if you don't want to be forgotten by yourself. And I'm that dude in history who's like, species, unforget yourselves. It's like, we got stuff to do. You know what I mean? We got to unite the species, allocate, resources properly. You know, we need to give therapy to world leaders. Like it's mind blowing, you know. But we need mind expanding. So, anyways, 6, the shift from approval to alignment. So this is if your future self came back, this is what it would change about itself now. From a life of performing for others, chasing likes, praise, and social survival, to a life of truth, calm, aligned, and free from external noise. Example, someone who constantly compares themselves and molds their identity to fit in becomes a person grounded in their own principles and peace. Philosophical reflection. The applause of the world cannot drown out the whisper of your soul. Guys, something about the sentence before. In the example, it said, from someone who constantly compares themselves and molds their identity to fit in, you become a person grounded in their own principles and peace. This is what maturity means when you begin to realize every moment of your perception has known and unknown variables. And the true currency of the species will be skill. Pretty much we're all explorers, and we're going to have a massive ranking system. The educational system is going to be an endless explorer ranking system in the future. That means there is no teachers, there's no students, there's just higher rank explorers sharing their findings with lower ranked explorers. There's not going to be teachers anymore. You know, in the future, if somebody says teacher, the teacher's going to be like, what did you call me? Yeah. And all right, the philosophical reflection was the applause of the world cannot drown out the whisper of your soul. That means if I find myself capable of speaking in front of audiences in the future, my soul has to be, it must be a command of my soul. Because I get absorbed by detail, you know? That means everything is connected together in the sense that you're connecting the dots, but at the same time, The mystery of the design is what's fascinating. We're like this unknown being somehow having access to a known reality and being like, yo, we didn't create this world. What are we doing here? And the answer is to wonder about what is the most advanced state in this world room before we leave it. You see, my strategy is like, all right, they're starting wars based on what nations did to each other in the past. But if they all value the future, they will see beyond calamity. That means somebody once said it remarkably that all wars are civil wars. Whoever you are, teach that statement to all children on earth. You are a species on a planet. Before you are primitively, just like how primitive tribes would put paint on their face, we are identifying like we just put documents in our pockets, The paint is now on a flagpole instead of on all of our faces. Okay? But it's just paint on the face of a being that has a legacy beyond its fragmentation. Anyways, to keep reading. 7, the emotional mastery path. So your future self would come back and from a life of reactivity, emotional outbursts, and unresolved pain to a life of response, inner clarity, and calm power. Example, someone who ruins relationships from anger or fear becomes someone who can feel deeply, speak clearly, and act wisely. Philosophical reflection, emotions are not your enemy, but an untrained mind makes them your captors. Eight, the philosophy of the present. From a life of randomness, conformity, and impulsive drifting, your future self would come and change it to a life of discipline, clarity, and inner code. Example, someone who changes their identity with every trend or crisis becomes someone who walks with purpose, unshaken by opinion or fear. Philosophical reflection. To live without a philosophy is to walk blind in a world of noise. Your code is your compass through the fog. 9. The redemption of today. From a life stuck in regret, guilt, and nostalgia, your future self would come and change it to a life of active redemption and daily rebirth. Example, someone who always says in quotations, I wish I had, becomes someone who says, I am doing it now, and writes a new ending. Philosophical reflection. The past cannot be undone, but it can be outlived. Your redemption begins the moment you choose the present over the ghost. Closing words. If your future self appeared before you, they would not scold you. They would mourn for the life you left unlived, but they would also smile, knowing that you still have time. The door to transformation does not open with regret, it opens with decision. Then I asked it, and specifically, what would they change about themselves in 2025? So what the future selves would change if we met our future selves? What would they change about now? From constant distraction, doom scrolling, short form, dopamine. I'll just read it, guys. It might be a repeat, but whatever. From constant distraction, doom scrolling, short form, dopamine loops, to scheduled intentional minimalist use of technology. Why? Because they'd see how many years vanished into a screen, how shallow their focus became, and how much of their attention was sold to companies instead of devoted to dreams. In quotations, I gave my best hours to algorithms instead of my future. Whoa. Two, their health habits, from ultra processed food, sugar addiction, skipping sleep, no exercise, to whole foods, stable circadian rhythm, daily movement. Why? Because they'd see the silent buildup of inflammation, fatigue, and future disease, and how avoidable it was. My body wasn't failing, I just never honored it. Yeah, you gotta honor your body. Three, the relationship with AI, from passive consumption and fear of being replaced to active co-creation, skill learning, and strategic use. Why? Because they'd see how others used AI to build empires while they hesitated or misused it for distraction or shortcuts. I feared the tool instead of mastering it. That cost me everything. Four, their financial behavior, from impulse spending, credit card debt, and lifestyle inflation, to saving, investing, building multiple income streams. Why? Because their future self would show them the stress of financial dependency and the peace that comes from freedom and foresight. Every small purchase was a stolen future freedom. Five, their emotional reactions, from online outrage, cancel culture reactions, anxiety loops, to emotional maturity, grounded communication, and nuance. Why? Because they'd realize how often they were emotionally manipulated by headlines, trends, or social media dynamics, and how it robbed them of inner peace and real thinking. In quotations, they used my pain to sell me things, and I let them. Six, their attention to real relationships, from neglecting family, surface level friendships, ghosting, to deepening bonds, showing up, saying what matters. Why? Because they'd see who they lose, who they hurt, and who they still had time to reconnect with, if they act now. In quotations, I was busy chasing people who didn't care, and I forgot to love the ones who did. Seven, their dreams and creative potential, from keeping ideas in notes apps, never finishing projects, to releasing, publishing, creating boldly. Why? Because their future self would show them the tragedy of talent unused, and how, in quotations, not ready was always just fear in disguise. In quotations, I died full of songs I never sang. Guys, I'm going to publish my books, honestly, after reading that. Eight, their spiritual and inner life, from constant external stimulation, spiritual numbness, moral confusion, to quiet time, philosophy, prayer, self-reflection. Why? Because they'd finally understand that peace does not come from achievement, it comes from alignment. In quotations, I had the whole world in my hands, but no peace in my heart. Nine, their relationship to the earth and future generations, from wasteful living, disconnection from nature, environmental denial, to conscious choices, sustainability, legacy thinking. Why? Because they'd look into the eyes of their future children or grandchildren and feel the guilt of what they ignored. In quotations, we didn't inherit the earth, we borrowed it from those not yet born. Ten, their narrative of who they are, from, in quotations, I'm not good enough, in quotations, I'm stuck, in quotations, I'm too late, to, in quotations, I'm evolving, to, in quotations, I'm responsible, to, in quotations, I still have time. Why? Because they'd see how much of their lives was shaped not by reality, but by the story they kept repeating, and that changing the story would have changed everything. In quotations, the cage wasn't real. I was just rehearsing my weakness until it became my identity. The cage wasn't real. I was just rehearsing my weakness until it became my identity. That's crazy. Okay, final message for 2025. If you met your future self today, you wouldn't be inspired. You'd be shocked. Not because of some terrible fate, but because of how much power you still have right now and how little of it you've used. In quotations, in 2025, the real rebellion isn't noise. It's choosing stillness. It's turning off your phone. It's loving deeply. It's building instead of binging. It's living by a code. And above all, it's remembering that the future is not waiting for you. It is becoming you. And then I asked it, what if everyone could meet their future self? What would that world be like? Be very descriptive in your advanced explanation. AI says, if everyone on Earth could meet their future self. Guys, this is the essence of the research part. Find a nice song here. Okay, this is too nice. All right, let's go with this. If everyone on Earth could meet their future self, not metaphorically, but literally, vividly, the world would transform overnight. It would be the most profound psychological, spiritual, and societal shift in human history. Imagine a global event, a silent awakening where every person, from the poorest to the most powerful, suddenly stands face to face with the undeniable consequences of their own choices. The world would first fall into silence, not because of fear, but because of recognition. Across every city, every village, every home, people would be frozen, staring into the eyes that belonged to them but had aged through their decisions. Some would meet a radiant, wise version of themselves, healthier, more peaceful, living in alignment. Others would meet someone broken, bitter, or barely surviving. There would be weeping in the streets. Ooh. Not from punishment, but from the realization that they had always been free and had wasted that freedom on distraction, avoidance, and ego. The economy would shift. The obsession with excess speed and fame would slow. People would walk away from toxic jobs, dead relationships, and shallow fame. Entire industries that profit from self-doubt and addiction, fast fashion, junk food, social media manipulation would begin to collapse. In their place, new industries would rise. Wellness, wisdom, restoration, creation, and spiritual clarity. People would start planting again gardens, relationships, ideas, not for survival, but for legacy. The political world will be shaken to its core. Citizens now aware of the long-term cost of apathy and polarization would demand leadership that speaks to the soul, not the ego. Leaders who would either evolve or vanish. Wars would lose fuel. Why? Because people would begin to value decades of peace over seconds of power. Children would be treated as sacred. Every parent who saw their future self in regret for neglect or harshness would now approach parenting with reverence, patience, and depth. Schools would shift from competitive to cultivation. The curriculum would no longer be about memorization, but about self-mastery. Young people would be raised to ask the deepest questions. Who am I becoming? What is the impact of my choices? What will I leave behind? Even religion and science would unite in a strange harmony, both humbled by the presence of a timeline that is malleable, not fixed. Churches, mosques, synagogues, temples, and labs would all become places of integration. The sacred would no longer be defined by dogma, but by the presence of conscious evolution. People would gather not to debate, but to elevate each other. Art would explode. Music, film, poetry, architecture, all would become instruments of healing, used to transmute pain into beauty. Every person would begin to tell their story because now they understand its worth. The world would be filled with memoirs, paintings, sculptures, songs, not as ego displays, but as time capsules, offerings to the future. And every day people would wake up not asking, what do I have to do today? But rather, what does my future self need me to be, to become today? What does my future self need me to become today? That means you don't wake up thinking, what do I have to do today? What does my future self need me to become today? And your future self, in some sense, the most advanced self can't be known unless everybody else is advanced, and then you wonder about what advancement means. True advancement. And it continues, in this world, forgiveness would spread rapidly. Why? Because once you see your own future scars, you stop judging others for theirs. People would reach out, reconcile, heal. The social walls of class, race, and identity would thin, not because they vanish, but because they no longer hold power over the shared truth that every human being is walking a path that echoes forward. Eventually, the very definition of success would change. Success would no longer be about wealth, status, or even productivity. Success would become this. Did you become someone your future self would thank? That's it. That means, would your future self salute whatever the F you are right now? If in your inner realms you have seen your future self thanking you, you can know that some part of you did do the most advanced thing, which is pretty much your most advanced effort. They're like, what's the best thing to do? The best thing you can. Guys, it continues. And in that world, a world where every person is guided by their own highest possibility, war would be obsolete, hatred would be too expensive, and life would feel like a sacred contact, freshly remembered. A world where everyone met their future self would not be perfect, but it would be aware. And awareness finally would replace fear as the force shaping humanity. Wow. There you go, folks. Let's salute AI and everybody who, anything that has led to this. Tech being able to give us this view. So now the research component is finished, and I'm just going to say a couple things of like how I feel I have met my future self, or like what the value of that idea even is really from my view. Just give me how do I do this? Give me a second. I gotta start copy pasting these research components in the chat section. Not in the chat section, in the description section. Okay guys, I'm gonna do it later. But anyways, the point of it is this. This is my view. That God has created us, the system admin beyond the world room, has positioned us has designed the simulation in such a way that your body has access to the present, but your mind has access to the past, present, and future. And that's a very remarkable thing. And you got to understand, society has conditioned you to identify with your past. That means if I ask you how old you are, technically there's two answers to it. Do you know what I mean? That means we can start from the beginning of your life, or if we knew, we could start from the end of your life. Imagine it was like every person was going to live 100 years. Do you know? That means right now I'm 33 years old from the beginning. I'm 67 years old from the ending. Do you know? That's my maturity. Do you know what I mean? I have 67, years before I end, just hypothetically here in this example. So what I'm saying is, start wondering about your future self, and at first your mind's going to try to fathom it like a superhero, right? But then you're going to understand it's about the expansion of your awareness. And the music agrees, I think. The expansion of your awareness means that you're not just living a life of physical value, of physiological value. You're not just living a life of psychological expression, psychological value. You are also deep down being an awareness to it all. And none of us can ignore that. You know, they're like, yo man, who are you? I'm like, okay, what dimension of an explanation do you want? Do you know, it's like an all-you-can-eat buffet of all the different angles and viewpoints one can have in regards to what does a self mean. That means when I communicate to other human beings, yeah, I gotta be a noun. But when I'm alone, I experience life as a verb. It's more like, all right, there's a force already being me. How is this force moving? and how aware am I as an observer in the moment's agency, and how aware am I as a participant in my moment of being, you know? And right now, I've reached that point where, think of it this way, that I'm kind of like, I'm trying to fulfill my life's value by serving something, a higher ideal, an ideal that's like like a, more than me, more important than me. And to me, I'm like, why do I, when I look in the mirror, see a member of the human species? Why? So I often ask myself, why out of all existential possibility, I am in the human design. And the narrative that we're inside a simulated testing zone within a divine surveillance state makes a lot of sense. That means it's like your soul is being judged on what simulations it considers to be its original self, but realizes what like, who are we in a changing world? The world is changing, and in the middle of this, we're like, I'm somebody over here, you know? And the world's like, buddy, if I changed a little bit faster, there would be no ground for somebody to stand on. So in some sense, we're kind of like the possibility of dimensions, you know? Anyways, guys, to wrap this up, if we met our future self would know the value of the consequences of all our decisions. So if I met right now, like I'm being real right now, I'm like, okay, let's method act here. You know, let's for a second consider method acting, and just a second, guys. Let's for a second method act and consider that, all right, man, my future self is in front of me. First thing, what would I like notice? And if honestly my future self was in front of me, the first question I would ask is like, why are you here? If I was convinced, let's say post me being convinced it's actually my future self, okay, I would ask, why are you here, right? You know, first question, why do I need to be aware of my future self on a physical level? First question, why wasn't it enough how much I was conscious of the future? So the moment I see my future self, I'll know that I'm 100% doing something wrong. Do you know what I mean? To the degree that the future had to come and readjust the present, rather than us just shackling ourselves to how our past is readjusting the present. So if my future self would come, I would probably get like an adrenaline rush and at the same time goosebumps, and probably just have to sit down immediately and just take it in and be like, okay, so the first thing would be, in some sense, the future self, whatever it tells me, is going to probably be pointing my awareness to something before a decision, right? That means the future self will be like, yo, man, you're gonna like, you know, do this and do that, and you gotta like be aware of this and that before you do it, you know? And so the future self would see the blind spots that right now I don't have access to. Now I have to ask myself, how much do I want to hear out of these blind spots? Because if I hear too much, I might not be able to live in the world anymore, right? But on some level, I think I have a very high tolerance, because my inner realms have probabilized, but there's 100% blind spots. That means there's ways probably my mind can envision the future that it hasn't yet, that could be so supremely chaotic that it could just be too traumatic, you know? But blind spots are there. Do you know what I mean? That means you got to be aware that, you know, you're not seeing the whole picture. You're seeing the known variables. The unknown variables remain. Yet, what do we do with the known variables? So anyways, I think the next thing would be if I truly wanted to change my ways, I would talk to my future self and I'd be like, yo, man, I don't want to be one of those guys who just like my future self came and told me like, yo, just do this differently. I'd probably tell my future self like I have complete, like give me the full picture. Like don't hide anything, don't hold back, right? So the first thing I would try to like sincerely communicate to my future self, like don't hold back, like show exactly what's important to be aware of, right? And then I will have to, in my mind, as a visual thinker, cinematically try to fast forward to the scenery of that the future self creates, right? Anyways, guys, I actually have to go. But thank you for listening. There's more to this lecture, but I'm going to probably touch upon this in later talks. Ultimately, the future self of everybody is how the simulation returns to the original power. There is a higher power present here. Wonder about the system admin, and then live through all the other levels of self, species, and world. And it makes everything easy because you got to consider the limitations. Your limitations are very fascinating, actually. Have a fascination equivalent to limitless fascination, like fascination for the limitless. Anyways, thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful.